In the middle of the night, imagine a small boat floating across the ocean. There is no radar spot, wake, or shine. From the sky or a ship close, there's no sound to warn you. Still, this ghost ship could be carrying tons of cocaine and is set to land thousands of miles away without leaving any signs or setting off any alarms. It's not science fiction, it's true. The ship you see is a Narco submarine, but it's not the big deep-diving military sub you might think of. Instead, it's a ghostly figure that blends in with the background and can't be seen, heard, or felt. Dozens get away from the nets for everyone that is caught. This is the story of how and why these narco subs work so well, and why most of them are never found. What are narco submarines, and why is submarine a bad name for them? The first thing you need to know is that almost all narco submarines are not really submarines. Instead, they are semi-submersible or low-profile vessels, LPVs, which are boats that are designed to float very close to the surface of the water. A small cockpit or exhaust snorkel is often the only part that stays above the water. For this reason, these ships are designed in a way that makes it very hard to find them. Many are made of fiberglass or composite materials instead of metal, which makes them almost invisible to normal maritime surveillance and greatly reduces their radar cross-section. In short, these things are like ghosts on the water when seen through radar, sonar, infrared sensing, or even just looking. How do traffickers build something that shouldn't exist and still get big loads across the ocean? To find the answer, pay close attention to the details, use good products, and be very practical. Narco subs are made to float so low in the water that between 12 and 18 inches, or even less, of the boat is visible above the water. Often, only a small snorkel or cabin top is visible. That small amount of exposure makes it much less likely that radar or visual recognition could pick up anything. A lot of these boats are made of fiberglass or composite materials instead of steel or metal. Radar doesn't bounce off of these in the same way, so regular radar sweeps don't always work. Radar usually only sees a weak blip or nothing at all because there is no metal hull to bounce signals off of. The surface that can be seen is usually painted dark blue or ocean blue so that it looks like the water. These kind of boats can look like floating trash, driftwood, or a lost log from above. Modern narco subs often let the hot gases from their engines escape underwater, which cools them down and makes them much less heat-emitting. That means that devices that use infrared light or thermal imaging don't see much. A lot of these boats move slowly and quietly so they don't make noise that sonar can pick up or wakes that can be seen from above. Low speeds cause less turbulence, wake, and disturbance in the water, which makes them harder to spot even with high-tech marine surveillance. Many narco subs are made to go on long trips, even though they don't look like much. They have big fuel tanks, navigation and communication systems, sometimes based on satellites, and enough space to move several tons of illegal goods over thousands of kilometers. Some sources say that these ships can go across seas, which means that traffickers can get to coasts that are hundreds of miles away. Where and how these ships are built is another important part of how stealthy they are. Narco subs aren't usually built in obvious, official factories. These groups are not found near major ports, police routes, or nosy people. Instead, they are found in jungles, hidden river networks, or remote coastal areas. Thieves move things like fiberglass hull shells, engines, and fuel tanks in secret, usually by land or rural waterways. Then, when it's dark or they're alone, they put these boats into rivers or along the coasts that are far away. From there, the narco sub blends into the open water, so radar, sonar, and eye sweeps can't find it. Because they don't go through big ports or well-known shipping lanes, the authorities almost never get a chance to see them before they disappear into the ocean. No matter how well-equipped the Navy or Coast Guard is, it's hard to find a narco sub in a stormy stack of hay. Several things work together to make discovery very hard. Radar and sonar don't always work. Radar systems often don't pick up anything on boats with plastic hulls and low waterline exposure. Sonar has a hard time too, especially passive sonar, because semi-submersibles are small, quiet, and don't make a lot of noise. Sonar may not work at all if the ship is slow, made of wood or plastic, and doesn't make the usual submarine sounds. Since the exhaust goes beneath, there isn't much of a heat signature. Most of the time, these ships can't be seen by thermal imaging or infrared detection, which are used from planes or security ships. The parts of a Narco sub that can be seen from above might look like a floating log, debris, or sea clutter. They can blend in with the sea even when it's dark, rough, or not very bright. This is true for both small boats and spy planes. They are hard to see because they are painted in foliage and have a low freeboard. The ocean is so big that it's impossible to keep an eye on every mile. Even with today's technology, patrol boats, planes, and satellites can only cover a certain area. They can't cover everywhere that Narco subs might go. Analysts think it's very unlikely that a single surface vessel will be able to find a Narco sub, even if they are on watch. One study says that the chance of detection only goes up when more than one asset is used, like surface ships, helicopters, and maritime patrol planes. But even then, success is not a sure thing. A lot of Narco subs are only designed to go one way. The ship may be scuttled, abandoned, or left to float after the cargo is dropped off or moved, erasing any record of the trip. This use and discard plan makes it even less likely that the police will ever find a full ship or connect it to a route used for trafficking. Traffickers can manage to build a lot of these boats, even though they know that only a small number of them will work. This is because losing one boat is so cheap compared to the drugs, which are often worth millions of dollars. In the past few decades, Narco submarines have changed. As methods for finding them got better, so did the ships used for smuggling. What started out as simple wooden boats that could go partly underwater have changed over time into sleek, low-profile boats made of fiberglass. Some stories even say that fully submersible or remotely controlled versions are being made. Modern LPVs usually have big fuel tanks, navigation and communication gear, like satellites and long-range radios, cargo holds that can hold several tons of drugs, and even very basic living spaces for their crews, just enough to live long trips that last days or weeks. Some experts call this a type of asymmetric maritime warfare, in which criminal networks take advantage of the weak spots and gaps in state monitoring to use cheap, low-tech boats as machines for smuggling goods around the world. There have been times when Narco subs have been stopped, but almost all of them have a few things in common: inside information, informants, spying, and tip-offs, using multiple assets, ships, planes, and sometimes helicopters, and a lot of luck. Also, these ships are often only used once, which makes it very hard to find out where they came from. Construction sites, builders, supply networks, etc. Intelligence organizations are always having to play catch-up when there is no paper trail. The loads that these drug couriers bring, which are usually several tons of cocaine, are worth a lot of money on the streets of countries where people use drugs. Criminal networks get huge amounts of money from each successful journey, which they can use to fund more complex operations, corruption, and the growth of their illegal activities. These boats are very important to drug trade around the world because they are almost invisible, hard to track, and often destroyed after use. On the other hand, Narco subs pose a major problem for law enforcement and marine security. How do you police something that you can't even see? The water's very big. There aren't many resources, and the tools, radar, sonar, and infrared often don't work against such silent ships. The Ghost Fleet will keep going as long as criminals improve their plans, figure out new ways to avoid being caught, and take advantage of remote production zones. This is only the beginning. Subscribe now so you don't miss what comes next.